Today is Wednesday, June the 1st, 2011. I'm Matthew T.G.
I'm Steve Stanley.
I'm Heath Mulliken.
And I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to the Techology Show, a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. The world's only user-antagonistic podcast. This is episode 110. Good morning, everyone. And let's go ahead. I'm going to switch things up real quick. We're going to welcome Kevin Beers to the show. Kevin, good having you from Buffalo area. Isn't that right?
That's right. Great to see you guys. Glad to be back.
Welcome
Hope
back.
You guys are doing well. Thanks. Good to be here.
All right, and we're going to get to Kevin here in a moment. Late breaking news out of South Korea, I understand. Steve?
Yes, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to tell this or not, but I'm going to. Being a father gives you, the paterfamilias laws, don't they? Give you some rights. I have a daughter that says she's in the family way.
Okay, so anyone listening to the show live, this is our secret, okay?
Yes.
Let's just keep it among ourselves. Those of us who are using the internet, we'll just keep it among us. And
That's
no one
right.
else. Until it can be announced. Congratulations there, Steve.
Thank you.
And if you tell someone, tell them not to tell someone else.
That's
Right?
right.
How it works?
Be sure.
Thank you, Kevin. We needed that kind of clarity. And listen, I wanted to read a message that we got through Facebook concerning last week's show. It says, I listened to your episode 109. I'm one of the unmentioned LBA members discussed on your show by Janetta Herrera. She published a document written by anonymous authors who did not tell the truth about what happened. My wife and I have directly confronted Janetta about this on her Facebook. And one of the things I want to do this week is just throw out the disclaimer that clearly when we discussed this issue last week, we discussed one side of the issue or one person's version of the story. There's always another side of that, of any story. There's always another side. And so, we just acknowledge that right up front, that there are others who could step up and tell a totally different story about that. Our purpose in all that last week was to get to just the issue that there are power structures in churches at times that prohibit growth or that can be polluted. And so, that was our interest, and that's what we're covering. But
we
again,
obviously touched on something that was sensitive for a lot of people who we didn't use names or anything like that, but there are people who were familiar with that particular scenario, and we touched on a nerve there. And so, yeah, we apologize for that. We certainly didn't mean to offend or upset in that regards, but that was our intent, what Tony just said, to talk about churches with power struggles.
Yeah, and we certainly apologize to anyone that even felt victimized by that last week. Again, we stripped away all the names, tried to keep it anonymous. And so let me move on here. Something that we're excited about, we have been in dialogue with Wesleyan Publishing House, and we still have a few little things that we have to work out yet, but it looks like we're going to kind of enter into just a partnership where we're going to interview authors that have written material through WPH, and the weeks that we have them, that we interview the authors, WPH is going to be gracious enough to give away a copy of their book. So we're really excited about that and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. It's nice to have that kind of partnership and to kind of be the media outlet for a good publishing house. There's a lot of great materials sometimes that don't get the recognition and the publicity that they should. Isn't that right?
Yeah. We on our show here, we have interviewed Jeremy Summers and Matt Leroy. They are the editors of the book and put together the book, The Way Forward. I have often said that book does not get enough press. It just doesn't. It is a great resource if you're if you're of a Wesleyan Arminian persuasion in your theology. It ought to be right up on the shelf there. Right. It is 20 brief biographical sketches of significant people in the holiness movement. And it is a great resource. And as you said, Matthew, there are good things that are produced that often just don't get out there. So hopefully we can be a voice for that.
We want to be. We want to get the word of these authors and these materials out there. Plus, it'll get free materials into your hands, which is also exciting.
When you think of the Techology Show, we want you to think, number one, sheer awesomeness, and number two, free stuff. That's what we want to be about.
Heath, when you came on the show, the sheer awesomeness factor came in.
It's true.
Oh, well,
it wasn't here until then.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's a good
All right,
segue. Speaking of sheer awesomeness,
yes.
we do want to welcome back to the show Kevin Beers. He's the lead student ministries pastor at the Wesleyan Church in Hamburg, New York. Kevin, last time you were on, we really got into and focused on how your church has leveraged your facility to basically be a community center in your area. And today what we want to focus on is what your church is doing to reach out and disciple college students. So kind of just share with us, what is your role at the church as it relates to college ministry?
Sure. Well, actually, since I came on staff at the Hub in the Wesleyan Church of Hamburg 6 years ago, I came on with this intent of helping lead this facility I mentioned, but I also wanted to pastor. I didn't want to just be a director of a facility. And so this age group was one of the age groups that they had in their mind that they wanted to reach better and disciple better. And so, man, for the last 4 years out of the 6 I've been there, I've been focusing really intensively on this college age group, as we call them. And so I lead the teams that help do the ministry in the community of Buffalo for college age students.
What are some of the types of activities and events that your church has been doing to kind of reach out and provide stuff for those college age students to do?
Sure. Well, it kind of breaks down into kind of 3 different categories, what we've been focusing on. In Buffalo, a lot of our students typically leave the area, our own college, our own church students. Right. They come through the student ministry and they take off. So our core kids, I'd say less than 10% stick around, wow, if even that. And so it's very difficult. It's different than student ministry. It's different than any other ministry. It feels like they take off when you feel like you're ready to get into stuff, and so that's been a challenge. But the good news is, within a mile each direction of our church, we have a college campus, a community college that's right there for our county, and also a kind of satellite campus that reaches out to St. Bonaventure University. They have a satellite campus right down the street from our church as well. So it's more so going to where the students are at, and instead of trying to have them come into our facility, our high school and middle school, the Hub is beautiful for that. But it's a combination of going to them and then helping bring them in and continue to go out to where they're at. So the threefold is some of the things that we do, just give you some ideas, some things that over years of research and trying and retrying, we actually do these things called coffee groups. And it's kind of based upon what Mark Batterson's been doing down at National Community Church, how he has a coffee shop in his church, the idea of where are students meeting up? Where's the place where they go to have conversations about life? And so basically every single week, about 25 to 30 students that like to have what I call conversational discipleship. We get together and at a local coffee shop, I made some connections with some coffee shops in the area and said, what's your slow night of business? We want to come in and bless you as a business in these hard times, and also have conversations that relate to our faith and our values and wise choices. And so we've been doing that for the last year, specifically even this focus, and it's been unbelievable. Wow. Topical conversations that pull things that students are dying to talk about. What am I here for? To things like how do I read the Bible? To what is my purpose, or who am I as a college student? What's my identity? Where do I fit in this plan that God has for me? So it's been a blessing to be a part of that. Go ahead.
Kevin, let me ask you a question. We had Melinda Denton on, Dr. Melinda Denton on our show a few weeks back, and of course she's done a lot of work with the religious life of American teenagers, but they're tracking them. They started when they were with this group when they were 13, 14, 15, and they're going to track them for a decade. And Christian Smith has been a part of this, and one of the things that Christian Smith says is, we in the evangelical church have really published this idea that when kids leave the church to go to college, that they get off of the radar screen of the church. They're dropping out of church. But his research is showing that while they may not be going to church on Sunday morning, they may in fact be plugging into groups like what you're talking about, that may become the substitute. And I don't wonder if the church couldn't even leverage that more in terms of reaching out.
Right. the thing I totally agree. The connection we try to make is that's our outreach, but it's also real-time discipleship. I mean, these students they're all asking the same questions, similar conversations, and they want to be a part of the conversation instead of a lot of people have this perspective of the talking head on the stage or the golden tongue on the stage. They have questions as it relates to different things, and I find it's not necessarily to debate even. It's just to hear each other's story, to hear how have you interacted with Scripture, how have you dealt with this issue, and so it's been a great adventure learning how this works and seeing students bring their friends who would never ever come into a church building or a context because of either something in the past or perceptions, and then we do see these students make that jump into the gatherings that we have on the weekends at our church. The thing I want to talk about even more so in this is this challenge of, man, I want to see multi-generations coming together. Right. What if I could connect a college-age student, that 18 to 24-year-old, that's what we call it, because some kids are in college, take a year off before they go, but that college age, what if I could connect a education major, someone who wants to go to school for teaching, with a either retired or experienced educator who loves Christ and can just say, man, would you redefine what mentoring would look like by helping them navigate through life? What are the 3 things you wish you would have known starting out? And right away, they have this voice, this influence in this student's life, and that student can go back to them and what if I could connect the generations that way? So that's my goal this year more so, is to have our church become more part of this, more than just our facilitators or young adults that are helping out. What if we could get the whole body to come be a part of this and just see God's kingdom grow outside of our church walls into our community? This semester, we're launching another coffee site in a different town. I want to each year just duplicate it again and again and again to just reach people in different towns around our church. So
maybe you guys in the studio could help me here. When Melinda Denton was on the show, didn't she talk about some of the work that they're trying to do in terms of what Kevin is speaking about with intergenerational? And she was saying that not necessarily that you have generations that are worshiping together, but but networking them so that relationships are being formed.
Yes, she did mention that subject.
Yeah, I think the goal is to try to move and think of intergenerational church not as where we're all sitting in the same worship service, but that we're actually participating in serving together and discussing and being discipled together. Kevin, one of the things we had, my very first church was on a college campus, at a Wesleyan college campus, and we had, I would say, typically 50 to 60% of the students in our youth group went to that college. And so for the longest time, there was just this very blurry line of where our youth ministry ended and our college ministry began. It sounds like you guys don't have that issue. I guess my question is, the students that you're reaching, do you find, are they coming into from the community from other areas, or are you reaching people who are Buffalo born and bred but just going on to college?
Both. I think that limited amount that is from our church, born, grew up, but then there's students, I mean, this is the crazy thing, there's students at ECC, which is this community college. They have one of the top football programs for community colleges in the nation. Wow. They recruit people from Atlanta, and there's guys from the Midwest, and so they all come from all over the country and play football or basketball, some of the athletics, to build their GPA up so they can go on to Division I schools if they had a bad semester or something. So it's a unique format, but they're coming in from all over, and it's crazy. In fact, Buffalo in itself, it's one of the most diverse cities in the nation, even with now refugees coming in and those kids growing up and trying to figure out where to go from there. So it's amazing to see the demographic all over the place. I want to tell you, though, one of the things that's been a huge help to me, I want to pass on a resource to you guys, and anybody who's thinking about college age ministry or young adult ministry. There's a book by Chuck Bomar, which was huge for me, called Slow Fade, The Slow Fade. And it talks about that idea of most churches think the finish line is when kids graduate high school. And he goes on to argue that, wait a second, what if we move that back to when they graduate college, because those are the most formative years for someone's spiritual formation.
Right.
And those are the years that it feels like they're done with their race, and the church, maybe not even intentionally, but kind of says, okay, you figure out where you fit in and come be a part of the body. But it's almost like their life resets, and almost like a middle school kid moving up from 4th grade into 5th grade. Like, they're trying to figure out who they are. Their accomplishments don't really matter anymore because they're in a new setting, this transition. It's amazing epiphanies inside this book, and how churches at every level of, if there's colleges around you or if you're in a college town, what you can do to tangibly help make this intergenerational ministry take place. Wow. So it's a great book.
Also, don't you think, Kevin, that this is where the church really has to have a universal view of the church and be very missional? Because if I'm a church in a community where there is a college, and I'm going to make connection with college students, I have to do that understanding that there's not going to be necessarily a big payoff for my local church, because they are transient. The most you're going to have them is 4 years at best. In most cases, you probably won't have them that long. And so I think there has to be this long-term view of what you're trying to accomplish here.
Correct. Yeah, most definitely. You're right. Even the community college is 2 years.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. And so it's that trusting that God is who he is, and just saying, God, you've given these people for this time. You want to invest in them, and we're going to trust that what you do in this season, you're going to use, if it's elsewhere, when they go someplace else, to build the kingdom and to think kingdom thinking, not empires and our own buildings, right?
Yeah.
So
very good.
So that's one aspect. If you can't tell, I love this ministry. It's something there's not a lot of resources for, and so it's just kind of a trial and error, and very much built on, just like every ministry, relationships, investing in people, building teams, trying to be creative, and just letting God do his thing. So, yeah.
Kevin, what's the process that you guys have that would move a college-age student who's just coming into the coffee house environment, just joining to the discussion? Do you have like the process of moving them from there to active service in your church? Have you given any thought to that, or is it like you said, there's just not a lot of there's not really a blueprint for all of this? I mean, how do you guys think in those terms?
It's an ongoing learning process. From right now, the way it's happened is I have some core students and students who just graduated college who help me facilitate these coffee groups that we have, and so out of those relationships, it's inviting them to next step levels of ministry. If some kid is ready to go to a church service, be a part of a gathering, it's inviting them to that. If it's baptism, if it's the things that resonate with students. If it's a service project, something tangible where they can be used and be seen that they're a part of the solution to God's plan for this world. Those little things, those little steps, it's just helping. It's real-time discipleship, you know?
Right.
So there is no strategic, well, let's go here, then here, then here. It's God, what are you doing in this person? And let's help them navigate. What are their passions? How can I connect them with people who have similar passions?
Wow.
How can I help them grow where they're gifted? Those things. So that's just one aspect, because not every student likes to have dialogue and conversation. A lot do.
Right.
So that's one thing that I've done. We do that weekly, and it's been great. It's like a large group, small group format. The other thing I do is we do that because of the hub and the incredible facility we have. I do it because of all the athletes and this community college in the area. I do this college age open gym and just have an open basketball forum. I mean, it's pick up ball for 2 hours every single week, and halfway through the night, obviously building relationships the whole time with my leaders, just breaking everybody down in the center, and I do a 15-minute devotional. Just kind of a thought, a truth of the night, life verses that have impacted me, my leaders' testimonies, just another touch point for students who connect through sports and use sports ministry to reach those kids, because it's such a big population. And seeing Christ move in that environment, talk about how do we develop ourselves, what does it mean to have true life, all the things that college students wrestle with, you know, the pursuit of pleasure. What does that look like? There's good ways to pursue pleasure. There's horrible ways that destroy you.
Right. Right.
So all those issues, and that's been a blessing as well. So those are the two primary ways back home.
How many would you typically have for an open gym night?
During the prime of the year basketball season, between 40 and 50 typically.
Wow.
And so we have 2 courts that we run simultaneously, and we open up the rest of the facility. So while guys are waiting to get on the court, we'll have our game room open and live games on the screens out there. So guys can watch, hang out, build relationships while they're waiting to get back on. And yeah, it's interesting to see. It's been a huge draw just for students that are more athletic.
I know that Heath really wants to know, Kevin, does winner get to keep court?
games to 11, and we go winner stays on max 2, and then you rotate. So nice. There's an even rotation across the board.
I'm curious, you know, if I had a group of pastors, just senior pastors or solo pastors, one of the things, and they were just starting out in ministry, one of the things that I would address is how the whole nature of visiting has changed. A generation ago, you went to homes, you visited. Now, in ministry, it's really about crisis visitation. So when a crisis hits a family, you know, you're there, and it's a meaningful time of ministry. I'm wondering, is this the case with college students as well? I mean, during a time of crisis, is that a place where you can step in? And if the answer to that is yes, what does a crisis look like for a college student?
That's a great question, and yes, it is very much a part of the ministry. In fact, this year, through our outreach basketball, or open gyms, we had a friend of a student who regularly came, went to ECC, who overdosed. And so every week I made it a point to say, as I welcome people into our facility with my leaders, this is a place we built for you guys, because we want you to feel like this is a place where you belong, and where when life happens, you have a place you can come and talk to people. And so we make that a regular point. And so this happened, and obviously the next week, what an incredible way to be able to share the hope that we have and the peace that God can give us, and to help these guys wrestle through some of these questions. And so we did talk about that, had a chance to sit down with a student, share, and just listen to his heart and help him wrestle with these things. And so, yeah, most definitely, when life happens, that's when God shines the most, you know? So just another way we can do that.
Now, are you doing, is this stuff with the open gym and the coffee house, is this stuff you're doing just during the school year? And if so, do you do stuff in the summer for students from your church who may be returning home for the summer? What's the summer look like for you guys?
Yes, good question. During the summer, we do continue we just have what we call college open hub, or college night at the hub. And basically, you're right, everybody who grew up in the church returns home if they don't have a job somewhere else or an internship somewhere else. And I do a very similar format of what I do with our coffee groups, except we do it outside in our patio and enjoy the 3 months of sunshine we get in Western New York. And we just, you know, the biggest thing, I take the month of May. We don't do programming in May. We don't do programming in September. And I use those months to help transition students. And that's ongoing all the time. That's connection, whether it's Skyping with them, sending care packages. Every year when our students graduate, I try to connect with every student who is graduating from our student ministry, and send them an email or phone call, depending if I know them, how well I know them, and then tell them, hey, here's a link that helps show you where the local campus ministries are, where you're headed, so you can get connected to a church where you're at. Here's a website that helps show you Christian college roommates if you're looking for a roommate. You're just beginning that process. It's a website called liveabove.com, and you can go in there, type in your school, and you can find out what's around you locally. And then I help students transition back into life with, you guys need a job. Let's get together over coffee, and let's connect with a couple of your friends that you used to hang out with that maybe you haven't seen in a year. And maybe you're looking for an internship, or you're just seeing how they're doing, helping them, you know, just hearing what is God doing, or how's their faith doing? How are they growing? What are they learning? And so those 2 months are the transition months. And then during the rest of the summer, we enjoy the outside, having these real-time conversations and this conversational discipleship, and enjoy the weather, whether it's ultimate frisbee or let's go for a picnic, but having this dialogue that continues throughout the whole year. So.
You know, as you were talking, Kevin, one of the things that strikes me is we live in this day and age of social media where we're all connected, and yet how in the midst of connection we can become very disconnected. And what I hear you saying, I think here, I don't want to, put words in your mouth, but the personal touch still makes a difference, doesn't it?
Oh, big time. And you wouldn't believe the comments I get from students. Man, that care package you sent was perfect timing, or man, that email that you sent out, or that phone call, that text, those little touch points. And I'm actually speaking in our church in August about empowering the rest of our team, the rest of our family to do this. So it's not just me. Can you imagine if, this is my goal this year, is when a student graduates from high school, I'm going to have them fill out an exit survey. That one of the questions, not just contact information, but where you're going or what's happening next in your season of life, but asking them, who are 3 influencers in your spiritual journey since you grew up in this church? So that I can reconnect them and say, man, you were that kid's middle school leader. And maybe you haven't talked to him in 6 years.
Good.
But you have a voice into his life. Can you imagine if you just called him or sent him a care package or sent him cookies? If you're a grandparent, you're a Sunday school teacher for this kid, if you were to send a note, we're praying for you. How much, man, I remember what it's like to get stuff in college. It was like gold when you got mail or when you got a phone call or a card. So I'm really going to pass that on to our team, cast the vision, and say,
that's fantastic.
This is it.
Yeah.
So that when they come home, they want to see people, not me, not our ministry. It's the family. It's the body. And so that's the key, the connectivity, multi-generational connectivity.
That's one of the things that on all levels of the church we have done a very poor job of, and that is really examining ourselves. I'm trying, what's the word I'm trying to think of, where a review of our ministries. And that what a wonderful way to ask students in that exit interview to say, hey, what worked, what didn't work, and it helps you improve your ministry, but it almost gives them a little bit of ownership of what's going on at your church. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you. You are at a very large church there in Buffalo. What are some things that a church of any size could do to reach and disciple college-age young adults?
Sure. I think, like we've been talking about, this idea of connectivity, but I think it's having real-time relationships, conversations, sharing your life with students. Students are a sponge. They want to learn from people. They want to hear your life experience. I found an incredible resource that I want to even pass on to you that relates with the show perfectly. You've probably heard of Alpha before. Yes. Churches do Alpha across the country. In the last 2 or 3 years, they've come out with a student version of this for free for churches to help create these settings, these environments where you can have conversations and, man, to get generations in those conversations to talk about formative things that develop someone's spiritual mindset, their spiritual formation. It's actually called studentalpha.org if you want to go there. But I know I just talked with my brother-in-law, who's a pastor at Wesleyan Church, about 10 minutes from me, and they're trying to reach out to this age group more intentionally over the next 5 to 10 years. And I was mentioning they have a group of about a dozen or so college-age students, even young adults, and he was trying to find this resource. And I told him about it. It's something that I've used on campuses in the past to even do worked with a parachurch organization like InterVarsity on a campus in the city, and I came alongside them because some of our students graduated from high school and attended. They're about an hour or 45 minutes from us, and so I went up and helped them start this. But this would be a great tool that all the stuff's there for you. There's videos, 20-minute videos that start a conversation for you, and then you can break down and dialogue about it. I think it's including them in what the church is doing. That's what it is. It's not just having them go through the finish line and say, all right, well, join a small group. It's being intentional about setting up, inviting them into your small groups. It's reaching out, making those connections of people who've already had a voice into their life, and just letting God work, you know.
Well, very good. Very good, Kevin.
You know where I originally heard of the Alpha program was from I follow Bear Grylls on Twitter.
Yes.
And he was talking about it, and I'm like, Bear Grylls is a Christian? Like that just like
that makes it more awesome.
That makes it even more awesome. So that's how I kind of heard.
Made you want to go eat a snake?
No.
Honestly, I had a chance to hear Bear Grylls at I got invited to go down to this conference in Orlando, Florida, which was awesome because of the weather. And they shared this vision that they are so passionate about this generation. They took the Alpha course, shrunk it down so it could fit in this semester, and then they updated the videos with illustrations and application that's more modern as far as talking about latest artists and what is the world saying versus what does truth say, what does God say, and really made it very impressive. And it is something you can do in your dorm room if you're on a campus, or something you can do in a classroom or in a group setting. And Bear Grylls is 100% behind it. Alpha changed his life because it allowed these conversations to happen with people and heard their story. And I mean, that's our greatest testimony, right? It's our story. It's what God has done in our lives as it relates to different things. And you can't argue that stuff. And students are looking for that, hearing so that they can make their own faith journey personal and discovering what God is doing in other people's lives. So.
Awesome.
Well, Kevin, this has been good. We appreciate so much you coming on and being with us again to talk about this.
It's a matter that's on the forefront of our denomination. I wonder what we could do to help our denomination get Kevin's voice in the conversation, in the bigger conversation that the denomination's trying to have on this topic.
Well, I think, Kevin, are you on I know they just put a team together that's working on some of this stuff, and I think he's on that team.
You're on that?
So
I'm on that team.
Good.
So yeah, we've had some great dialogue. We got together last time I was on with you guys. I just got back.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
Emerging Leaders Cabinet, and so I'm actually writing an article for headquarters this summer, talking about a lot of what we just talked about today. So you can be looking for that as well.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, drop us a line when that's coming out, and we'll be sure to let our listeners know about it.
You got it. No problem.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to push forward. Kevin's going to stay with us for the rest of the show. We're going to transition into the download of the week.
Yes, we are.
Download of the week.
Wow, I guess this
Believe
is
it or not.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I guess this is my responsibility to talk about this, but I guess not. Go ahead there, Tony. What's our download of the week?
I was just going to say, believe it or not, I think that Steve Stanley suggested the download of the week.
He sure did. Share with us, Steve, brother Steve.
Well, as a radio aficionado, of course, with a broken radio in my car, I was at wit's end trying to figure out how in the world I was going to listen to my favorite programming. Somebody in my church, Joe Owen, recommended this app. Tuned in, you download it to your Tune In. I think I was corrected earlier, not tuned past tense. Tune In. You download it to your iPhone. I think there's also an app for Android and probably other smartphones. And you can listen to radio stations from all over the world. I was listening to CNN News on the way over to the show this morning. And it's the whole TV program minus the picture. Just wonderful, and it's free.
Yeah, they basically aggregate internet news streams, which is it is great little thing, and I've used it to listen to WFAE out of Charlotte because they're an all news public radio station that I like.
My daughter
don't have to suffer through the.
My daughter uses it in South Korea to listen to the stations back home here. So
now we just got to get the Techology Show on the radio.
Yes, on the radio.
It will be set.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Heath, you work on that, okay?
Hey, who says that I haven't?
That was some good delegation right there. That was awesome. I saw that real time.
I mean, it might be on at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night.
Can you practice your voice? Hello, Americans.
Can we get on
This is
Channel
Heath
16
Miller.
in
Actually, if the show's going to be on at 2 in the morning on Saturday night, we're going to have to talk a lot more about alien abductions.
I'm up
Heath,
for
did you know that I actually, before I went into full-time pastoral ministry, I was in Christian radio?
You know, I saw that somewhere. Was that when Christian music was not as good as it is now?
Oh, no.
Oh, he's a heretic. Everyone wave goodbye to Heath Mulligan.
Now,
His
were you just doing a disc jockey, or did you do talk stuff, or what kind of stuff were you doing?
After I graduated, it was a God thing. I worked at a station down in the city. I did production. I was a production assistant, and didn't know what God was doing at the time, but He was setting me up so that eventually I became a board operator, and then began to help produce in a teen call-in radio show.
Wow.
And I didn't know what God was doing, but I was able to hear stories of what God was doing around Western New York while I was working there. Kind of like just getting this overall perspective.
Wow.
And youth groups would come in, we'd interview artists and speakers, and I'd go to conferences and interview people. It was like the perfect setup for going into ministry, just hearing the heartbeat of what God was doing. And it was awesome. So, and one time, let me share one last story.
Yeah.
This is crazy. One time we had a staff meeting, and our general manager asked me to pray, and so I prayed. And after he goes, "Kev, I need to see you in my office." I'm like, "What did I do last night? Did I forget something?" Because I worked second shift by myself in the station, make sure that no one came in and robbed anything or took anything. And so I go in his office, and he's like, "I've never really heard you speak before. I love your voice. Would you want to produce and be on air, your voice?" And boom, next thing you know, I'm making commercials and everything from car commercials and sound effects to voiceovers for like major festivals. And then better yet, in December, I was helping produce this live call-in show. 20 minutes before the show starts, the host calls and says, "Kev, there is a huge snowstorm. I'm not going to make it. Can you go on live in 20 minutes?"
Wow.
True story, man. So next thing you know, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I just start taking calls, playing music, reading scripture, interacting with the audience. And the guy called back next week. He's like, "That was unbelievable. Do you want to co-host every single week?"
Wow.
And that's how it started. Next thing you know.
Wow. So do I hear maybe a volunteer to make a little commercial for us? Like, hey, this is Kevin Beers. Listen to the Techology Show for all the beers you'll ever need.
No, see what I envision when I hear, if it was a radio voice, it'd be like Techology, the Techology Show.
No.
Okay, what I'm thinking over here in Chicago is that next week this is going to become the Kevin Beers Show.
There you go.
That's funny. I know, Jim Nance, the guy from CBS, he's kind of, I don't know if he's coined the phrase or copyrighted the phrase, when the Masters rolls around, they show all the commercials, and he's always like, "A tradition like no other, the Masters." Well, whenever he's on the Dan Patrick Show, Dan Patrick just kind of gives him something random, and so Jim Nance will say, "A tradition like no other, Greenville First Wesleyan," he'll say something like that. And so, Kevin, you could be our Jim Nance.
You let me know you want me to voice it.
All right, we got him on.
Sample. No,
He's
I
on
just
the
want to
hook.
hear a sample of like your radio commercial voice real quick. Is there something you can give us?
Oh my goodness, it's been like 8 years, 9 years. I'll get back to you on that. I'll send you something you can play later on. How about
Nice.
that?
We'll give you a script.
For all your heresy needs, the Techology Show.
For all you do, this beer's for you.
Okay, let's move on to They Said It.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Read my lips.
I'm going to say this again.
I've never taken steroids or HGH.
I took the initiative in creating the internet.
The Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
I'm not a crook.
If you know what you're doing here, slide out.
I just couldn't believe it when I heard about it. We trim our trees back every 3 years all over our property, and this is the first time we have been fined. Eddie Sales, parishioner at Albemarle Road Presbyterian Church, commenting after the church was fined $4,000 for excessive trimming of trees. Their trees. Source, Charlotte Observer.
Proposed changes to the tax code could reduce charitable contributions. However, the Congressional Budget Office does not expect religious organizations to be affected because religious donors are less sensitive to the tax benefits of contributions. Instead, it is the charities favored by the rich, the arts, education, healthcare, and Ohio State football that are more likely to see lower donations. Tobin Grant reporting on possible changes in the tax code. Source, Christianity Today.
If you shut down our power grid, maybe we'll put a missile down one of your smokestacks. An unnamed military officer or official speculating on what the Pentagon's new strategy to fight cyber attacks might be. Source, The Wall Street Journal.
Jobs plans to unveil a new cloud-based service called iCloud, offering computing and data over the internet. Apple said in a statement. The CEO will also unveil a slew of software upgrades at the conference, including Lion. It's Mac OS 10. I can't see, guys. For our listeners there, let's see. Anyway, Reuters is reporting that Apple's doing some great stuff.
Sounds like it's being delayed yet again, doesn't it?
Has anybody ever
slammed me on that, man? I couldn't even read that last sentence.
Has anybody ever noticed?
Let's start off with this story that Steve read. This is crazy,
yes. Steve.
Oh, I tell you. You know my stance on the separation between church and state and how that works two ways. So it infuriates me that they're fining this church at all for anything like that. But second of all, what they're fining them for? $100 or $150 per branch, depending on the kind of tree. Per branch you have pruned, depending on the kind of tree that you've pruned. And these are crepe myrtles. Anybody that's ever had crepe myrtles knows that you have to keep them up or they droop over into traffic and so forth. And they're right out on the street. And so they've come along and they find this Presbyterian church $4,000 for what they call excessive trimming of their own trees.
The city is the one that...
The city is the one.
It was predestined. Why? They were predestined to be fined.
That makes no sense.
Pull up this, if our listeners can pull up the story, I mean, we link you to it. They have a picture of one of the crepe myrtles that they trimmed. It's crazy. And Eddie Sales says, we do this every 3 years. I mean, we have been doing this historically. We try to keep our trees trimmed up. And this is the first time the city's come along. And so, as Steve said, they report that they charge them $100 per branch.
It makes me wonder what's the rest of the story.
The total was $4,000.
Who's the whistleblower on this? Was somebody driving down the road and saw that they had done this? Or is there somebody in church that said, well, we've never trimmed our trees like this for a while like that? We're going to call the authorities.
See, it says at the bottom, for large trees such as oaks or maples, the fine is $150. But here's my point altogether. This is why I am neither Republican nor Democrat. I am a libertarian. You ought to be able to do whatever you want to on your own property as long as it does not hurt your neighbor. If you start a toxic dump on your property, I could understand the state's interest in that. But if you want to cut down all your trees or whatever it is you want to do, that's what freedom's all about. And now they're doing this to churches.
It says here in the story that they were fined because they didn't get a permit to trim these trees. It's not necessarily the tree trimming themselves, like people are upset about the trees being trimmed, but they didn't get. I didn't even know that you would need a permit.
It says right here they were fined $100. I'm quoting now. The church was fined $100 per branch cut for not failing to get a permit, excessive pruning, bringing the violation to $4,000.
Yeah, the Urban Forester says the purpose of the tree ordinance is to protect trees. Charlotte has always been known as the city of trees. When we take down trees, we need to replace these trees. Well, they didn't take down the trees.
I tell you, when I think of Charlotte,
I thought Charlotte was known as the city for bad football.
Well, it's the city known as gang violence.
Hold on here.
Downtown
We have in studio my wife who grew up just north of Charlotte. All right, was Charlotte in Denver, North Carolina, about 20 minutes north of Charlotte. Anything major that would happen in Charlotte. Did you know of Charlotte as the city of trees? No. What was Charlotte known as? The Queen City. Where did it?
The Queen City. That's right.
Queen City. So was Cincinnati. I bet there'd be a war over that.
Buffalo's a Queen City too.
There you go. Wow. A lot of queens in those cities.
Wait a minute. I don't understand any of this.
Queen Elizabeth.
It's crazy.
Now, Dairy Queen.
Pickens, South Carolina is known as the Scullery Maid City. So, hey, I love the quote that Kevin Beers read for us here. You know that the Pentagon is constantly being slammed by cyber attackers, so they're going to announce this week, at the end of this week, their new policy about this. So I love the officer, you know, if you shut down our power grid, maybe we'll put a missile down one of your smokestacks. And they really are. The speculation is that the new policy says that some of this stuff could be considered as a declaration of war.
Yeah,
yes.
that cyber attacks could be a declaration of war. And it means, well, what constitutes a cyber attack? That's the next question that I would have. What constitutes that? So, I mean, what do you do with? I don't know. I feel like this is a extremely aggressive stance to take, but a cyber attack is very important. They're talking about a cyber attack here that would potentially affect power grids across the United States, which I can understand. But does stealing a username and password, is that an act of war if someone from a foreign country did that? If they steal
President Obama's username and password, then yes, that would be not a good
I don't know if you guys heard or not. Lockheed Martin was slammed, Boeing was slammed yesterday, and they have a lot of military contracts now. My understanding so far is that Boeing was able to shut things down and prevent a breach, and it appeared that what hackers were going for were the military specs of planes.
It's crazy. It's been interesting to watch the cyber attacks over the past month and a half. That's really, I feel like things have either picked up or else we're hearing more about a lot of these different things.
But here's the thing that I like about this is they are basically saying, you know what, if you want to go out and hack HeathMulligan.com, that's one thing. But when you start messing with this other stuff, I mean, how do they know the difference between a 22-year-old hacker in his mom's basement doing this or a member of Al-Qaeda doing it? Still trying to accomplish the same thing, you know, shutting down a power grid or stealing information. And so you have to deal with both as if they're the same type of high-level threat. And so to me, if you know...
I'm confused, though, Heath. What are you saying, that if a bomb drops on your house, we can assume that you were trying to hack the Pentagon? Is that what I'm supposed to understand about that?
Yeah, that was it.
I think the court order dictates that I'm not allowed to comment on my whereabouts.
I just let the record reflect that Heath has removed the smokestack from the parsonage.
Actually, we won't be using this smokestack after it almost caught on fire last fall.
He's willing to donate it to any church crank. So
yes,
call Heath for that.
All I know is my kids are always wearing tinfoil on their head so that they can't figure out our whereabouts.
So, Tej, what's Apple going to release next week?
Well, it's the Worldwide Developers Conference starts next week. And, of course, when it's a developers conference, it's supposed to be all about software. That's supposed to be the big deal. And so I'm glad to hear that there are some major software announcements coming up. OS 10 Lion, 10.7, which
I love it.
I'm excited. Yeah, it's going to be great for you. You can, I tell you, I think you should
chase your lion.
I think you should buy us all the upgrade disc.
I'll buy the 5. I'll buy the 5-person disc for that. Maybe.
But that is a great upgrade. It's looking good. They're really trying to bring some great features into that, which I think will be great. Then there's iOS 5, which hopefully everybody's hope is that notifications will be fixed. Right now, if you get a text message or say some kind of alert or something, it pauses everything that you're doing. If you're in the middle of tinkering on a game, everything's paused because this little pop-up comes up. There's got to be a more subtle way of aggregating those messages, and stuff like Android, they do that really well. They've got this nice way of all the alerts and messages, you get to them by pulling down on the top bar, you like where on the iPhone where the clock and all that is, and it's just like this little folder that holds all of those alerts and messages that you can then view. Well, iOS really needs to revamp those. They're showing the age of the system, so hopefully they'll do that. Also, there's speculations that widgets, little micro apps basically that could be on your home screen or on your lock screen or whatever, could come out as a part of that. But it'll be a good day. I think the big news, though, to just kind of get you an idea about how big the announcements are going to be, is that the opening line of this announcement is Steve Jobs will be presenting these things. And he's been on sick leave, but he'll be back for this. And I think when they pull out, when Steve Jobs gets on stage, that means they've got something major they want to talk about and something big they want to speak to, and they're trying to get people's attention with this. So it'll be exciting. It'll be interesting. I'm just, as always, excited for the development of the Mac platform, both the computers, the smaller devices, and all of that. I think that there's tons of potential. When
it was announced yesterday that Steve Jobs would be making this announcement, their stock went up $6, which didn't affect me. I don't own any stock, but I think this is going to be not your typical. It's got to be big for Jobs to come off medical leave to make the announcement.
Yeah, the I mean, it's the iCloud. That's what the big announcement is for this. I think.
I mean that's interesting to me. That digital locker, having it up there, being able to keep your stuff up there. That's cool, and I'll be excited for that. I really will, especially because it means that you wouldn't necessarily have to buy the 64 gigabyte iPad. If you had a big music library, you could have it all there, and you could stream it wherever you were, right from the cloud onto the device. That's neat. But I'm less excited about that. I'm more excited about what iOS 5 and OS 10 Lion are going to be, and when that's going to be available, than I am the iCloud deal. But I'm sure there's going to be some awesome little goodies in the iCloud stuff.
When they also, not as part of this, they're also announcing. I got an alert yesterday that they've got iWork now for iPhone and iPad.
Yes, and that is the Keynote and Pages apps. That is a great word processing. In fact, it can export in doc formats. It's a universal app, so it runs on both. You buy it. It's $10 for each application. You buy it on your iPad. You can use it on your iPhone too. It's fantastic for creating documents, for doing stuff like that. Keynote for presentations.
Yeah.
Fantastic to be able to do that. You can export right into Keynote on your computer too. It's great.
Hey, a question for you guys about the iCloud.
Yes.
How does that affect people who have Mobile Me? You guys have Mobile Me at all?
Yeah.
Seriously, are they gonna?
Because
basically, Mobile Me is like an iCloud, except you pay for it.
It is, but I think that it's you can use Mobile Me right now in the same way that they theorized the digital music locker of iCloud's going to be, but you have to piece it together yourself. You have to work through the process to make that happen. This is going to be an integrated deal. And one of the patents that they showed is that if when you sync your phone, they're talking about putting of your music library, the first 10 seconds of every one of your songs, every one of your pieces of music on your phone, so that your phone can immediately start playing that piece of music. And then while that first 10 seconds is going on, it's contacting the cloud to pull down the rest. So you save a ton of file space, but you get that instantaneous start. That's one of the patents that's theorized in how it may work. So you have a fraction of the space being used for your entire library with the same responsiveness and being able to get a hold of all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and you can use that. Now, my big hope is that the Mobile Me stuff will come down in price. That it's it's $100 a year. We have a subscription to it because back before Find My iPhone was free and Ashley's phone was stolen, we decided, let's get that so we can track down where that was. She had it stolen in a high school class she was teaching, and it would have been nice to have been able to pinpoint that kid. But
not to change, you said something about your phone being stolen. I don't know if you guys heard that there's I don't know the name of the app. I want to say it's hidden, but it's an application for MacBooks, and this guy had his MacBook stolen and actually created a blog, thisguy-has-my-macbook.com. And he is posting pictures that his MacBook is taking of this guy. He posted pictures of the guy logging into his Google account. And the police at first were like, well, we're not really going to be able to help you. And then he took this information to the police. They're like, are you serious? And so now pictures of him driving down the road, and I mean, it's just pretty funny.
There is something called Hidden. We've talked about, and I'm trying to bring up the name of it in my mind here. We've talked about another free bit of software that's open source. Can any of the rest of you remember? Prey, yes, Prey, which is a great piece of software to put on any Mac, totally free, totally hidden, to where if your stuff is stolen, you can gain access of your system. You can take those screenshots, those from the webcam, all that kind of stuff. You can track it down based on what Wi-Fi connection it's hooked up to, and it's totally free, totally open source, doesn't take up any system resources, and is totally hidden. Like it's on this MacBook right here and on my computer at home. And if you didn't, I mean, you'd never know. In fact, I've forgotten it's on there. But the day that if anything was stolen, when I log into the Prey website and I can start accessing this thing, it's going to be handy, you know.
Nice.
And let me, I know time's getting away, but let me say this real quick. You know, everyone knows, if you listen to the show, you know that we're Apple fans here. And one of the criticisms that I often hear is that Apple products are just so expensive. And I agree that they are. But they're expensive on the front end. And I just got a new MacBook Pro. And so here's my last 3 computers. I had a Toshiba notebook, I had an HP notebook, and then I had my first Apple product, which is a MacBook. My Toshiba, if you break it down by month, cost me $55 a month to have. My HP cost me $60. I just sold my MacBook on eBay 2 weeks ago, and so that MacBook cost me $15 a month.
Yeah, so you're taking the price that you paid up front, how long you used it, minus what you were able to sell it for in each one of these circumstances, for the Toshiba, the Hewlett Packard, and the MacBook, and you have a huge. I mean, that's the thing. This MacBook right here that I've got to my right is going to be 5 years old. And it still is holding strong, running great. I'm thinking about throwing a solid-state drive in there to speed it up a little bit. But that'd be 5 years of continuing to use the same machine. And I had a compact laptop going into college. And by my first year of college, by the time it was over, the thing was trashed. It was trashed.
Yeah.
And
Tony, how much did you have to pay somebody to take the HP laptop you had?
Listen, that computer. Now seriously, that computer I took a huge loss on. I mean, I paid about $1,000 for it, and I had a quick turnaround on that because I had the Vista experience. And if you remember, before you did Service Pack 1, Vista was a dog. And Matthew kept talking about Apple and no problems. And so I thought, well, I'm going to put it on eBay. I'm going to get for it what I can. I took about a $350, $400 loss on that computer in just a 6-month period.
Wow.
But it got me into Apple, and you know, I have just become a fan. And it's not just operating systems. I think Windows 7 is a great OS, but Apple brings a whole different user experience with their hardware. They marry the two things beautifully, and their products work. And the support that I've gotten from Apple on issues is just absolutely stellar.
Yeah, it's second to none. It is second to none. And even you talk about Windows being a good operating system, it is one of the best Windows experiences you'll ever have is to run Boot Camp and install Windows on a MacBook.
Yep.
It'll be one of the best Windows experiences you've ever had because the drivers are all there. It works.
That
flawlessly.
Just seems
it seems wrong. I mean, it seems,
we're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. And I feel like when you do something like that, it's very unnatural. And
it's a horrid thing to even
right.
think
of. Not supposed to.
My problem and what keeps me from going to Mac is that after you factor all this in, you're still left with a Macintosh.
Oh, brother, there's no hope for you. Hey, let's move on to our last story here. The police are hard at work. We had a 19-year-old in Gastonia, North Carolina, went into a convenience store, tried to steal some sausage, but I want you to know, he was tased.
Nice.
They got him.
Is that well done?
Yeah.
They tased him because he wouldn't comply. They asked him to stop walking. He wouldn't, and he also put his hands in his pockets, which is if you
no-no.
are anywhere near the police and you
Right.
put your hands in your pockets, you're going down, buddy.
Yeah, the best case scenario is you're going to get tased. I mean, that's really the best outcome you can hope for after that.
The good news is his buddies did own up to the $50 they owed him for going through with it.
What? So the moral of the story is if you're going to steal sausage, keep your hands out of your pocket.
Why? You're going to who's like, man, going to the store, man, I'm going to shoplift. What you getting? Sausage.
Can you score me some Jimmy Dean sausage?
I'm willing to do some hard time for some good sausage.
They don't make it like they used to.
You want eggs? Nope, just the sausage.
Just the sausage.
We're always bringing you the cutting edge stuff here at the
Oh, this is the
Technology.
stuff you can't live without right here.
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right. Well, listen, coming up in the future on June
I just
the
want to
20th.
let Heath know one more thing.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I
go
just want to
ahead.
let Heath know. I just got a text message. Heath, the Bills are announcing their uniforms June 24th. I know you're a Bills fan.
Me, Bill. Oh, yeah. Thank you. The Bill.
No, I'm sorry. Just got the text. Just real-time update. Want to keep you guys in the loop. Bills
Thank you.
announcing new uniforms June 24th, Friday afternoon.
Wow.
Stay tuned.
We will be tuned in. We might do a special Technology Show episode.
And the good thing for the Bills is they only have to wear those uniforms 16 games a year because they never make the playoffs.
Oh.
If they even play.
That's right. Yeah, this year they may not even get to use them.
Maybe practice uniforms for a year.
All right.
Go ahead.
Listen, upcoming calendar, June the 22nd, Tom Clegg will be with us, author of Missing in America, Making an Eternal Difference in the World Next Door. Also, coming up on June the 29th, we have Chris Conrad. Word salad. Chris Conrad. He is the district superintendent on the West Michigan district of the Wesleyan Church, and will talk to us about evangelism, church growth, planting churches, daughtering churches, things of this nature. On August the 3rd, Dr. Bob Weitzel will be with us and will be talking to us about his book, Waypoints. Really looking forward to that. We also have working out right now to have Benji Kelly on with us. We've got emails volleyed back and forth, so we're just honing in on a date right now. For those of you that don't know who Benji Kelly is, he pastors over on the North Carolina East District. Where is his church, Heath?
Their main campus, the main campus of New Hope Church is in Durham, but now they're kind of going multi-site, and they also have a campus in Garner, North Carolina now. And I think since on Easter they've almost doubled in attendance and just going gangbusters, and God's really blessing what they're doing there.
Great story, too, of district leadership and courage from district leadership on this particular issue. In the North Carolina East District, they made a tough decision and shut down a church, and when they sold the property, it resulted in, I don't know, somewhere around $1 million, maybe more. And then they took that money and they turned right around and put it into this church plant where Benji Kelly is, and it has exploded.
Yeah.
It is one of just the great stories in the Wesleyan Church right now, and truly a story of where you had you took what seemed to be a bad situation and just redeemed it for the kingdom, and took those resources and turned it around. And Benji is a great guy. And really look forward to having him on the show.
Yeah. Hey, and after mentioning Bear Grylls, I think we need to work on Bear.
We do, and maybe
definitely
what would be best is we'll have to bring him in via Skype. But boy, it'd be great if we could have him in the studio and turn a wild pig loose and just watch him wrestle that thing down.
I think that ought to just be the show. We ought to put the cameras up in the corner and then just all of us jump in there. Let him show us how it's done, and we'll have hog wrestling.
Oh my word!
And then we'll eat it.
Could you guys explain that to my wife, why we need to do that, please?
Well, I'll work on it.
That's so funny.
All right. Hey, Kevin, is there a place on the internet where our listeners can find you?
Sure. Facebook.com/Kevin Beers, or KevinBeers.com, or Twitter, Kevin Beers.
All right. Heath?
They can meet me or see me at chaseyourline.com, and actually just launched the Chase Your Line podcast. And about 5 minutes ago, if you go to heathmullican.com, the very first episode of the Rural Pasture podcast is up and ready. So we're everywhere. We're going gangbusters.
All right. Tej.
You can find me at MatthewTG.com, where our slogan is, if you can spell it, you are worthy.
Steve.
Facebook.com/Steve.Stanley.
All right. And you can find me at Facebook.com/AKC64. If you want to do further research on anything we discussed today, you can find all the links to the stories we covered at our website, thetechnologyshow.com. If you want to contact us, send your emails to thetechnologyshow@gmail.com, or you can contact us through our Facebook page. Want to thank people just for our comment this week and the last 3-4 weeks. We've had more comments, and we will gladly read your comments on the air. So keep sending those to us. Also, if you want to leave a voicemail, which we would love to have you do, just call 3049-TEOLOGY. That's 304-986-5649. Leave a message and keep it short, concise, and we may even play your comments on the air. Again, Kevin, thanks for joining us, and for everyone in the chat room, for all of our listeners, for those of you that download our podcast later, we deeply appreciate it. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Adios.